Your parents are horrible for letting you be trans. What's in your pants? Your health insurance doesn't cover this elective procedure. How do you do it in bed? You're so handsome for a trans boy. You're so brave for coming out as trans. He, she. I don't have any miraculous insight or compelling story about how being transgender has gotten me somewhere. I'm angry that some people think I'm supposed to be the expert on being trans. I just want to be a teenager. I don't want people to look at me and think I have any profound knowledge about the world because I only know about my life. For the first 11 years of my life, I believed I was a girl. I dressed in very feminine clothing, and I referred to myself as she. I lived my life routinely labeled as female, and I didn't question it. I'd never met anyone who was transgender. I'd heard a handful of stories of people who at a very young age demanded they were trans. They never appeared comfortable with the gender they were assigned and took interest exclusively in activities and objects associated with their gender, but nothing else. In my mind, this was the only way you could be trans. In truth, I'd never even considered gender because I was always told it was very black and white, even when it came to being trans. So for years, I thought it was impossible for me to be actually trans because I didn't match the mold that society had made. My blind acceptance of gender created a great discomfort in my life that I had no idea existed. In middle school, I would wear multiple ties and oversized suit jackets, calling myself a dandy or butch. I'd do anything to create an air of masculinity for myself, to the point where I made up male personas and dressed and acted as them on a regular basis. I'd look in the mirror and wonder what I looked like as a boy and get so frustrated why I wasn't one. But I'd tell myself I wasn't a boy because when I was a toddler, I didn't make a big deal about being called a girl. I thought what I was feeling was something that should be ignored because I'd never been introduced to gender as anything but straightforward, even though it was making me very unhappy to do so. The acceptance of who I am didn't happen overnight. There wasn't a sudden click in my head like I thought there would be. It took years of ups and downs before I was really able to feel okay with my identity. I remember sitting by the side of a swimming pool in 7th grade with my cousin, explaining that there was a brief period of time where I thought I was a boy, but in the end I just decided I was a lesbian. This back and forth between realization and confusion has been ever going throughout my entire life, and only recently have I been able to confidently present myself. My mother outed me to my school. For many months prior to this, we had talked about how it would have been a good idea for me to come out because the way things were making me miserable. Then, without my knowledge, she marched into the vice principal's office and told him how things were. I was called to the impromptu meeting, and when I saw her with the vice principal sitting around a small table in a room, I remember thinking, oh shit, what I do now? When I realized why I was actually in the room, a weight lifted off of my chest. Completely supportive, the vice principal never once asked me a question about my identity. Rather, he asked me what I needed to feel safe. He was completely indifferent to the fact that I was trans, but cared a whole lot about me as a person. For a very long time, I thought if I were to come out, my gender would be made into a big deal. I thought, and it didn't matter that attention was positive or negative. I was told that I would be glorified or villainized for something that is a very, very small part of me. I didn't want to only be known as the trans boy. I was afraid that my entire existence would be boiled down to one descriptor. My name is Leo. I'm 15 years old. I play the drums. I love biking so much that in August and September, I rode about 20 miles almost every day. I'm a good friend and a careful listener. I'm creative, and I aspire to be a journalist. I am a terrible procrastinator. And the only time I think about being trans is when it's brought up by other people. I'm sure all of you would agree there's more to you than just your gender. I don't want to only be remembered as the trans boy. Reducing anyone to a single descriptor strips them of their humanity. And without that humanity, trans people become victimized, killed, and sometimes end their own lives. My wish is that we can recognize that trans people have an ocean of adjectives that describe them. And we stop fixating on one small detail and forgetting them as a whole. If we're able to do this, we can create understanding and in turn safety. And with this safety, I can go back to being a teenager. Thank you.